The boroughs are New York City. The burbs are everywhere else. Real estate is the ultimate game of risk and reward. It's the biggest investment most people ever make. Fortunes are made over a lifetime and lost in a day. And we're not playing with monopoly money. How do you stay ahead? Who's buying? Who's selling? And why? What do they know? We want the truth. You need an edge. Boroughs and Burbs is your secret weapon, giving you the insider knowledge and strategies you need to succeed in the high-stakes world of real estate. From Palm Beach to Palm Springs, Manhattan to Malibu, we press the experts to expose the pain, find the deals, and occasionally predict the future. That's Boroughs and Burbs, Thursdays, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, because everyone can make money in real estate.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Boroughs and Burbs, episode 140. Today, we're talking about senior housing options for seniors. We've got three specialists on the show today. We've got Russell Barksdale from Waveny House, Anthony Gonzalez of Watermark Communities down in Palm Beach, and Graham Willoughby of Commonwealth House in Rhode Island. First, I want to thank my co-host, Roberto Cabrera. How you doing?
Hi, everybody. Good. Very good. Excited.
All right. So now, I'm a little out of sequence here, but here we go. There we are, Boroughs and Burbs, episode 140. You can find the rest of them on YouTube, and you can find them on Apple Podcasts. I'm your host, John Engel of the Engel team. That's Roberto Cabrera of Brown Harris Stevens in New York City. There's a little bit about Roberto, his video, his $1 Million Club Award, and his two current listings. He's got a rental in Manhattan for $7,500 a month and $1.5 million for a one-bedroom on West 89th Street. But most importantly, you got to go check out the Roberto Cabrera report. It's all about the rentals. It's 2 weeks old, and he analyzes the current rental market in New York City. I want to thank our sponsor, Grace Farms. I pulled up the nature page because I thought this was kind of interesting. You can go to all of their programs coming up at Grace Farms. They're doing animal encounters with the new Canaan Nature Center, gardening workshops, learning about beekeeping, and nature's classroom. Animal encounters is something I know all about. I encountered a fox on my driveway this week, and then I encountered a day later an owl on my property. And with that, I'm going to move right into Waveny. These are just some of the living options at Waveny. Independent living, they're worried about and take care of memory dementia care, skilled nursing, respite care. There's home care options. I'm going to turn it over now to Russell Barksdale. Tell us about Waveny Lifecare Network.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Roberto, and everyone for participating. Waveny Lifecare Network really is the full continuum on steroids. So we provide everything that a geriatric or a senior citizen or clientele could want, from active retirement to assisted living to memory care to home care to hospice to navigator program, at-home programs. We do it all. We employ our own physicians, our nurse practitioners. We do telemedicine as well. So we really want to be a one-stop for Fairfield County, Southwest Connecticut, into New York and Manhattan. And I'm happy to be part of the program, and I've participated with John and Roberto and other great topics that they've had in the past. But senior housing, I think, because of the baby boomers, we're starting to see the infiltration not only in our surrounding communities, but more people wanting to stay in their hometown, if you will, where their kids and their grandkids are being raised. And even in some very affluent communities, that population of over 65 is now reaching 16-17%. Which is even more than the number of children that are in the school system. So it is going to be a future investment, I think, for financiers that are looking for opportunities, multifamily to active adult to small houses, Florida homes, whatever they want to look at in investing. I think this is a market that is on the horizon. I think some communities have taken advantage of it and others haven't. And if I look at the outmigration, if you will, for Southwest Connecticut and Manhattan and New York, as I mentioned earlier, Palm Beach seems to be number one, and Collier County is number two, and Naples within Collier County is starting to really, as you know, if you've ever been to West Palm Beach and Palm Beach, the pricing now in Naples and Palm Beach is comparable to some of the affluent areas that are in Fairfield County right now. And we used to see people sell their homes and take a great chunk of equity out of their home and be able to put that into something more modest and still have a retirement income. Those prices in these key markets, I think, in these retirement communities have now become pretty pricey.
Okay, so a couple things I heard. One is that the old-fashioned notion of when I'm done with my house, I move into the home, one transition. That thinking is out the window. You talked about basically several different levels of transition, several different levels of independence. And Waveny Lifecare Network is called Waveny Lifecare Network because you're attempting to help them on the continuum. Is that right? So
That's correct.
how would you describe in simple terms the
Yeah.
continuum?
Yeah, there's no single point of entry. I mean, back in the day, when, I'm old enough to remember, you would go into an active adult retirement community, or you'd buy into a continuum care retirement community or a planned community, however the label was at that time. And that's where you would age in place. You would go from your active adult retirement community to assisted living, and then, God forbid, you'd have an acute care episode and required subacute care or long-term care, then you'd move to a skilled level. Now everything is trying to be brought to the home. The resident doesn't feel like they have the equity in the home. They want to keep their home as much as they possibly can. They want to remain independent in their home. So then home care ballooned up, and you started to see home care companies and at-home company licensed and certified start producing services to the home and to the residents so they could remain in their home. And we're seeing with inflation right now, with the pricing to purchase another home in a different area, with the interest rates being 6-7%, they're feeling that they would rather hunker down, and they're getting pushed out a little bit because of the increases in the real estate taxes, because of the increases in the cost of living into some of these affluent communities. Now we're starting to see them look at what are their tax implications for getting out from under their home and having that nest egg, that retirement fund equity build up so that they can enjoy the next part of their life.
So your concept is not a geographical location you go to. This is in home.
No, we have both a skilled acute rehab where you could come here and rehab short term and then go home. We have a long-term care where you can stay here for a long-term period of time. We have assisted living where you can stay here and get provided supportive services in your own apartment, or we can bring all of that to your current residence, and we can provide telemedicine, license, and certified therapy, and whatever housekeeping, grocery shopping, whatever, a laundry list of things. We take care of 1,000 patients or clients per day over that full continuum of care. So there's no
Roberto, we got 7,000 homes in a town like New Canaan. We only have one company in town, Waveny, that is in this business for my whole life. When I turned about 35, I think my mother pulled me aside and said, "You need to get on the list at Waveny." I'm like, "What? Oh yeah, you better get yourself on the list now. I mean, one of these days you're going to get old, John, and you're going to want a spot at Waveny. Make sure that they have a spot for you." So there's always been an anxiety, like when I need a Waveny, is it going to be there for me, and can I afford it? And so it's really interesting to me that the business plan for Russell and Waveny has evolved to say, we're never going to be able to build the perfect number of beds here. We're going to help you in your home, and then we're going to help you, I guess, in the, what do you call it, acute. We're going to help you even at the hospital level. So there's going to be the dementia wing, there's the hospital wing, and then there's the ordinary
A long-term care wing is, not that you're bedridden, but you're requiring 24/7 care. Our waiting list right now is 6.5 years. So we have people that are in their early 60s that have put their name on the waiting list, inevitably that they get to that point in time. But right now, we still try to provide as much services and care as we can in an individual's home. But at some point in time, that cost threshold flips over, right? If you think about having a full-time aide living with you, caregiver living with you, at some point in time, that cost is cost prohibitive for a couple, and then they look for the transition at that point. And whether it's in Rhode Island, with Graham, or whether it's with Anthony in Palm Beach, they're looking for that cost benefit, if you will, to be able to extend their funds. I mean, people are living a lot longer than they used to be, and you sometimes need to find that safety net, that nonprofit that's going to say, even if you outlive your savings, we're still going to take care of you, and you're not going to have to move outside of our network. And that's where the financial implications come, and looking at each of these organizations, and they're all wonderful, but you got to look at how long is your funds, that retirement fund, going to last you.
Russ, you're in Fairfield County solely?
I'm in Fairfield County, correct.
But is your company solely functioning in Fairfield County for the most part?
No, we have the entire state. I get short-term rehab. I get 13 different hospitals in Manhattan that refer to us for short-term acute rehab, and we'll discharge them back home. But geographically, that is our catchment area. And as I had mentioned before, not to sound like we looked at our out migration, if you will, for that targeted market. And that's when we start seeing the Naples, and we start seeing, Palm Beach and West Palm Beach start showing up on first it started as retirement home. I'm spending 6 months and 1 day in Florida, so I get the tax benefit, to I'm going to stay in Florida full time, to now I need help and care. I want to be near where my family is, especially where my daughter is. And therefore, you're seeing that migration coming back into the community.
Anthony, I'm going to pull up the geography. You're at Watermark Retirement Communities, and it was interesting to me that you're in many, many states. This is a big company. And then I wanted to click and show, this is the Watermark at West Palm Beach, where you're located. Can you tell us about the Watermark generally and the Watermark at West Palm Beach?
And I mean, obviously, first off, thank you, John and Roberto. This has been cool. Even just talking beforehand on being able to join you guys' podcast is awesome. So thank you. But yeah, Watermark is going to be nationally here in the States as well as in China. So we're a pretty big company that started 35 years ago with David Barnes, who really looked at senior living and said, something's missing, right?
China for the Chinese, or China for somebody like me who just wants to go someplace else?
Well, if you wanted to go to China, we have a place for you over there too, John.
Okay.
But really the biggest thing is, reimagining senior living and retirement communities. We have a lot, as I think Russell was mentioning, percentage wise, Florida's the highest percentage of people over 65 in the States at 19 or 20, which has probably gone up as of 2 minutes ago. Beyond that, what we're trying to do here is really create a sense of luxury, but also wellness components for members that we have coming into our communities. quite honestly, our clientele, our members aren't really looking into their savings or depleting that savings. They're coming in here for something other than a place to get to tomorrow. You know, they're coming in to find new purposes, new beginnings, new friendship, new socializations. And that's what we're providing for those members in a luxury setting. As you can kind of take a look at my background here, I'm in one of our restaurants that we have for our members here in the West Palm Beach area. I think, you know, touching in on this, I think it's awesome that saw that some of you are in New York, some of you are in Connecticut. People, the 5-year net of people moving to Florida that are, you know, over the age of 65 is increasing. New York is the top at 250,000 over the next 5 years. And Connecticut even rounded into the top 10 of people moving to Florida. When they look at what they want to do, you know, beyond purposes of their Social Security, their tax, their pension isn't going to have a state tax like you guys do up north. It's beyond that, right? It's the warmth. It's you know, finding new purposes. It's being a little selfish into saying, you know, what do I want to do, you know, with the rest of my life. And that's what we're providing for our members here. So I'm excited to kind of share a little bit more about that and answer some questions and just kind of give some answers as to what we're doing here at the Watermarks. It's a lot more than, you know, you won't come into my community on a Tuesday and see bingo happening. You know, you'll come in and see members learning new languages, members, you know, integrated into Watermark University, philanthropists into Watermark for Kids, which is our charitable donations. So it's really set in part to what our clientele and what our members have done with their amazing lives, and just kind of adding on to that.
So see your presence is across the country, and I was just doing some reading prior to this, and it said the states with the most assisted living communities was California, which I was stunned by, but it's over double the next, which is Washington State. California had 4,100 assisted living communities. Washington State was 1902, and Florida was third, which I was stunned by, at 1804. Do you guys is your presence reflect that, or you have more in California?
Our presence is really presented by, one, the opportunity of that area. It doesn't match where our clientele are going to be wanting to be, right? Naples, Beverly Hills, Del Mar. You know, I can't really speak in all honesty to what we're doing as far as California and branching out. What I can tell you is the communities that we are building are set specifically for that area. So they're brand new communities that we're building up, tailored into, okay, who wants to come to West Palm Beach? The people that want to come to West Palm Beach are, one, obviously people that want the warmth and the area, the geographical here. Maybe they have some friendships, but also is, what does a West Palm Beacher look like? They look like a New Yorker that actually still wants to get around, you know, get all of the city feel without the 20-mile walk. That's really what we're seeing here. And that's what we're building upon, that matching that geographical area to, you know, the members that we're going to see that actually want to be in that area. And then you go by population, right? How many people are in California and that surrounding area? How many people are in West Palm Beach? We have another community in Miami. Does it make sense for us to have a community in the middle of these two communities? It just doesn't right now. It's you know, small town to small town to small town, and then you get into Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and then the next biggest region is going to be us here at West Palm. So
Graham, you're in Rhode Island.
Roberto, I can answer the question as to why there are so many assisted living communities in California, because California is a very popular location for my style of assisted living, which is the care home. In California, they have something called a CRFE, a care home for the elderly. And these are 6 to 8 to 10 bed homes that are in residential neighborhoods that have been converted into assisted living. So there could be a city with, you know, 10 or 12 large 100-bed plus assisted livings, but 300 care homes. For instance, Phoenix, Arizona has 3,000 in the greater Phoenix area. These are 6, 10, 12-bed small homes that are in residential communities. You don't even know they're there, really. But what they provide is that small sort of residential feeling like you're living in a home. It's kind of like the Golden Girls, right? 5, 10 folks living together as friends, but also with the 24-hour care and amenities that a larger assisted living can provide. So I'm glad that you pointed that out, because it does help segue into what I represent on this phone call. So thank you for doing that.
I'm going to
Graham,
pull up your
Graham,
screen.
Yeah,
Tell
Graham,
me
can I
about.
just interrupt 1 second to answer Roberto's question? When you're looking at assisted living, and I'll jump back out again, some states have a Medicaid moratorium for assisted living, meaning that if you're in New Jersey and you need assisted living, then the state will pay, even if you don't have the resources, you can get a Medicaid bed in an assisted living because it is allowed in New Jersey. Connecticut does not, as a state, allow Medicaid, Medicaid does not pay for assisted living. So everything in Connecticut is private pay. So you have some people that do not have the financial means that are looking for those pockets, one being Pennsylvania, the other being New Jersey, where they have that safety net with Medicaid that would provide assisted living services.
Boy, this is exactly where I wanted to go. So are people moving to senior friendly states? You're suggesting New Jersey and Pennsylvania, where they have more options, more of the less expensive options?
100%. So you can have a for-profit entity that owns an assisted living business, and that person runs out of money, and that for-profit can bill Medicaid for that bed and for that unit. So you'll see more development in those areas that they can take care of that modest income population, where other states, because it's private pay, in order to make that financial number and their pro formas work, have to go after the more affluent community.
And is Rhode Island one of those states?
Rhode Island has no moratorium. Rhode Island is a Medicaid waiver state, so we are able to apply through the state for Medicaid beds. And one of the things that sort of held back that side of the business is the reimbursement rate has been so low for so long. But you see that in the news now. Everybody's screaming about it because nursing homes are shutting down because they can't afford, the ones who take care of folks that don't have as many resources. They just simply can't afford to pay their staff, pay their expenses, and it's a real, it's actually, honestly a tragedy. But certain states have turned things around. Rhode Island actually doubled its Medicaid reimbursement rate 2 years ago, and it's about to add 10% more. So I do have a couple of Medicaid beds. I reserve those for folks who, because what you need to do is spend down your assets till you have none, and then you can apply for those beds. So I leave those as an option for my residents that, that's a possibility. They're healthy, they're going to live a long time, they don't want to move again. We like them, they like us. It's a small place, it's a personal place. So we like to have, the residents that we like to have around, we want to keep them around. And so we give them that option. That's
a good segue to actually showing your website. It's called Commonwealth House RI.com.
Well, that's
Commonwealth House RI, and there's the website. How big is the facility?
So it's a care home. So this was actually a house that we bought, my wife and I. So the backstory is we're actually from Marin County, California, also a very affluent area. But like I said, in California, they have lots of these small care homes in their communities. My grandfather stayed in one, and there's me about 20 pounds lighter. And when we moved out to the East Coast for work, I got a job at Brown University, and my wife and I were sort of looking for things to invest in and be a part of, something that we could do for the community. And we noticed that there wasn't anything like this in Rhode Island. And so we started looking around, we learned a lot about the business, and we found a really great place to build. It's in a city called Warwick, which is right outside of Providence. It's right by 95, a really easy spot to access, close to hospitals, close to shopping. Close to Newport, and Boston folks pass through a lot. Connecticut folks pass through when they're on their way to their Rhode Island homes. And we bought it. We converted it from a 5-bedroom, 3-bath home into an 8-bedroom, 5-bath home. And so now it has 8 bedrooms, 5 baths. I'm licensed for 10 beds. We've been full since 2022. And so we're able to provide all of the assistance with the activities of daily living that assisted living is able to do. You can see I'm wearing my mask there. That was back in those days. But you get a pretty good idea. This is meant to feel like a home. When you're coming in, you're meeting somebody in their home in a high end sort of affluent type of a residence, but also something that feels familiar, something that feels like they're still living at home, but with 24-hour care. All of our caregivers are licensed CNAs, CMTs, LPNs. We have an RN that's on staff taking care of staff. That was our chef. Actually, we have a private chef that prepares all the meals in the residential kitchen. There's me again. For our residents, and a beautiful place that folks can come in and feel comfortable and at home, and something that's familiar, and it's my wife and I own it. We're the owners. It's our pride and joy, and so we'd like to think that pride of ownership is a part of what we are able to provide to that whole equation. So we're really proud of what we do.
Wow. So quite a range so far. Russell works just Connecticut. Anthony is part of a international with places in many different states, and you're private, 10 beds.
Yep. We're actually expanding into memory care. So we bought the property next door. We're opening a brand new build from the ground up, 14 bedroom, 16 bed, dedicated memory care cottage. So if you think of a large house, it's going to be about 8,700 square feet. Each room is its own private room, private bath, spacious, really nice, super high end. We're going for the fully high end, very luxury type of experience, big common areas, big backyard, but still in a residential neighborhood, very residential feeling, has a garage, a driveway. You really wouldn't be able to tell that it's a assisted living community when you drive up. And that's sort of the point.
How's the memory care? What's the demand difference from your perspective?
So we've done market studies. Assisted living is one of those. Standard assisted living is folks who don't have dementia. They may have lower level dementia, but they're not going to elope, meaning they're not going to walk out the door and walk down the street. They have generally good mobility, so they're able to get out of a chair, out of a bed on their own. That's sort of standard level assisted living for us in our market. Memory care are folks that are unaware of person in place. They have trouble taking care of themselves. They may be a danger to themselves, or they have a risk of elopement. That segment is really in high demand right now. The standard assisted living model, pretty much in Rhode Island, every bed or every person that needs that, there's a bed for them. Memory care right now, if I built 10, 16 bed assisted livings with memory care options, it wouldn't satisfy the demand that's out there. That's something that's really very much in need. Assisted living is more of a want, to describe the amenities and the really cool stuff that Anthony and Russell describe for their communities. But memory care is something where a person really can't live on their own in their own home anymore, and they really need an extra level of safety and of care and of attention. And that's a really very much a growing market right now.
But it's also more expensive to run that, right?
It is. More staff, more training. It's double the staff. You have to have, in Rhode Island at least, you have a full-time RN on all the time. The rates are definitely considerably more here in the Rhode Island market. I mean, if you see that Genworth cost of care, I mean, in Rhode Island, it's pretty inexpensive, to be perfectly honest. At $8,500 to $9,000 a month, it's inexpensive. You're talking Southern Connecticut or Boston area, that's a $13,000 a month type of a situation. So that's kind of what you're looking for in these, that's getting close to nursing home level price.
And Roberto, you have 3 different types of building codes as well. So if you're looking at active adult, that's one building code. If you're looking at assisted living, that's another. Memory care is a third. And then when you get into skilled level, I mean, you're at the hospital level, having to do with, egress, suppression, fire suppression systems, things of that nature. So the cost of construction also, ramps up considerably.
I've got on the screen the Genworth survey, and it's scaring me. It says that the cost of a semi-private room is $15,000 a month, and it's heading up to 20. Private rooms 16 a month and going to 22. I don't know
Semi-private,
any of my friends who can afford that.
and semi-private is code for you're sharing it with somebody else. So
Right.
think about private. Like that's actually probably a low number for a private room.
Look,
Right.
John, you even have, and I'm sure this is true. Well, I know it's true for New York, and I know it's true for Connecticut. You still have old skilled nursing facilities that have quads, that have 4 beds in a room. So you really have to do your homework when you move into a facility and your finances start to wane of what the living arrangements are going to be later in life.
Something to know
Who is
about the
moving?
pricing.
Who's moving in? I wanted to get into the timing of all this, because you keep talking about 65 years old, but most of the 65-year-olds I know are saying, no, we're not talking about me. We're talking about old people. And then when I talk to my 85-year-old friends, they're like, no, not me. We're talking about older people. Maybe when I'm 90. I've got clients who are in their 90s, living happily as a couple in their New York apartments, saying, yeah, one of these days I might need to move into the home, but not until it's absolutely necessary. So talk to me about, when do people make the decision, and how do they come to that decision to give up independent living?
Look, I'll start and be brief so that Anthony and Graham has plenty of time. The first is usually an acute care episode. Okay. The second is that you have a spouse that gets in the car and gets lost and can't find their way back home. There is something that happens and that occurs that the spouse and the family indicate, okay, mom or dad, we need to look at alternatives for you. A lot has to do with, do they have support around them? And that social support could be their church, it could be their daughter. But now you're having so many multi-generations that a 90-year-old has a 70-year-old, and we have mother and daughters sometimes move in together into an active adult, because that's their social network, and they support each other. So I would say, plan ahead, meet with your tax advisor and know exactly what your positions are. But we find too many times it is that acute care episode, it is that crisis, it is that, the wife wakes up in the middle of the night and calls 911 because she sees someone in her house, or she sees someone outside, or they get in the car and drive and now they're trying to track her down using her phone. There is something that snaps and causes that family to say, we have a crisis situation, we have to make the decision, and that's not the best time to make a decision, right? So we promote always start having a little bit of support at home for you. You have a spouse that's having difficulties. I mean, I think about our Navigator program that's made specifically for the caregiver, so the spouse can get out and still have a life and still feel supported. But at some point in time, that 75-year-old gentleman can't lift his wife off the floor if she falls or so it is that point in time that people find themselves in a crisis. And too often that's when we get the call. And I'll leave it up to Anthony. Anthony, I'm sure with retirement, active adult, they're just wanting to downsize. And we have a lot of people in town that want to do that, but they want to stay in town, and we really don't have an active adult retirement community in the area. So I'll turn it back over to them.
Perfect in our assisted living, in our memory care environments, which we have all 3 levels: independent living, assisted living, and memory care. Really the biggest thing for our clientele, our members, is being able to kind of make their own decisions before someone's making the decisions for them. And I think between what we offer at Watermark and what Graham offers over in Connecticut, Rhode Island, I apologize, is going to be very different, but also the same nature, just different clientele, different members in a different lifestyle. For an example,
their life.
Mm-hmm. For an example, you know, I had a member that just moved in a month ago, and her husband lived in a townhome just up the road from us, and very independent, very comfortable. But the stairs are just getting a little too much for them, right? It's just becoming a little too much. She told me the other morning, and this is a true story. Her words to me exactly was she felt very guilty in the mornings because of how happy she is she made this decision. She went from having a planner of one item on her calendar for the week to now she's too busy to take phone calls because she's just going from one class from water aerobics, ran a little late today. Now she's getting, you know, having to rush into a nice lunch or anything of that nature. But that's what we want to have. And that's the clientele that's coming into our community. I have members that are 62 years old that come in here and are enjoying that independent lifestyle. You know, they still get around with their friends. They maybe very rarely see them, but they're enjoying it. They have the option and they have that security that even if they don't have family here, they know, hey, Watermark, if we ever need to get to a point where we need extra assistance, we can do that here and we don't have to leave our home. So that's going to be important for us. The other thing on top of that is, quite honestly, you know, our members that are moving in, they want that socialization. Our biggest competition, quite honestly, is home, because they can afford to have a private caregiver and their home 24/7 with them, which is upwards of $15,000 to $25,000 here a month for just one person. So, you know, we have members that come in here and it really, yeah, we can do the care for them. We can help get them to where they need to be and all of that nature and provide a very luxurious environment for them. But for them, they want to make new friends. Life hasn't stopped. You know, they're not living till tomorrow. They're doing new things. Like I mentioned, they're learning new languages. It's really inspiring for them and for us. So that's really what we're providing here as far as the community essence goes. I just do want to mention, when we were looking at the slides of, you know, the nursing facilities going up to $15,000, $20,000 per room. If you're private paying for a skilled nursing environment, yeah, you're going to be paying that right now. But the nursing environment is very skilled in need. That's going to be someone that cannot get out of bed, you know, that is, you know, in that later stage of their life or their disease course that got them to that point. Assisted living, memory care, we don't service that same clientele to that extent. It's against our state licensing. So you have the standard license, a little bit of a limited nursing service license that you can utilize here. And then you have your full-blown nursing facility. And as you kind of drop into those tiers, you'll notice a lot of changes, most of them being care-wise, you know, who we're hiring, what does the day look like in here. But for us, our members, not really focusing on that. They're just more focusing on themselves and where they want to be, making sure they have someone that can care for them, but that they still have things going on that purpose them.
And can I just throw in the skilled nursing part of it? A lot of that is temporary rehab.
Yeah.
So, you know, a skilled nursing facility, let's say you go to the hospital and you had a fall or an acute incident and you need rehab, Medicaid or Medicare will pay for 3 weeks worth of care, but the assisted living is going to bill $400 a day plus for that. So that does go into that number. That number is not a long-term number. That number is a 3-week number. They pay for 21 days and then they start telling you got to find a place to go. So that's where we get those phone calls. So John, to answer your question of where a lot of these folks are coming from, they're coming from the nursing home. They say, I don't want to pay $450 a day anymore. Can we move to your place so that my mom can, have a more doable, sustainable environment where she can also rehab, because you continue having rehab come in, Medicare pays for that, folks to show up and do PT and OT and things like that. So that is definitely a sort of a stream of residents. The very common phone call that I get: mom's in a rehab, she needs to get out now. I don't want to pay $450 a day anymore. Help me. Another, stream of residents that we get is folks who call and they say, well, mom is living at home. She's perfectly happy, perfectly capable, but it's just lonely. Or maybe her spouse has passed away. She's there by herself. I come in and I visit her before and after work, but I have to work. I have to take the kids. you know, I have a life too. And she sits there and she didn't used to be that way, but she's alone all the time now. And she, you know, it's affecting her. It's affecting her, you know, her mental state. She's just not as happy anymore. She forgets things. I think she might have dementia. I don't know. We just need to get her into a place where she's going to have that social stimulation again, because, you know, I'm sure you've read all the studies where loneliness is just as deadly as smoking for someone who's elderly. It really takes a toll on your health. And so a lot of times it's just a matter of getting somebody into a place where they can socialize again. And, you know, my residents, they like the small house model because it's not, you know, it's not huge. It's not intimidating. It's, for some folks, you know, they would just lock themselves in their room if they were in a big place with lots going on. And you don't want them to do that. My residents, I can see their door and I just tell them to leave it open. And eventually they hear things are going on. We're playing games or cooking. They can smell the food from the kitchen come in. And they come out and they start to interact. And before you know it, they've become part, you know, their personalities back. They become a part of the community again. They talk and they interact with people. And, you know, that's a really cool thing to see, because a lot of times folks come in and it's hard to get them to open up. And after a little while, they get better. And you don't think about that. It's like, am I going to go to assisted living and get better? And it's like, yeah, you do. Because
how often is this coming from the kids who say, I think my parents need this? Or how often is it coming from the patient themselves who say, my spouse just died and I'm lonely and I'm ready for a change? How often does it happen to coincide with when they stop driving? Because it occurs to me that for a great many Americans who are able to drive and then one day they can't, does that cause them to start thinking about an alternative living arrangement?
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to move if I can't drive.
Absolutely. All of the above. You know, a lot of times when the kids call me, they say, Graham, you know, mom doesn't want to leave, but can we just come in and have lunch, you know, just so she can see what this is like. And a lot of times that, you know, that gets them thinking, hey, this isn't so bad after all. A lot of times, like you said, the spouse dies, the spouse passes, I'm sorry. And I get a phone call and say, you know, this just isn't home anymore. I don't feel right here without my spouse. You know, what do you have? What can you offer me to make my life a little more stimulating these days? And you know, so all of the above, John.
I definitely get a good mix of the two. You know, my independent living members are going to be searching for themselves, just searching for ideas, things that they can look for in that nature. But I also have a lot of the adult children that come into our community, and the first thing they say is, this is not at all what my mom is going to be thinking. You know, I have a lot of members that come in. It's my favorite tour to do when someone calls me and they're like, well, you know, mom's not going to want to do anything. Mom's not going to like this. She's been in a nursing home. Her grandma was in a nursing home. Her mom was in a nursing home. It's not going to work. And then they come in and they're like, this is not at all what we were expecting. And that's the overall, you know, process of what we're trying to change is that mindset, that mantra. But as soon as someone takes a step in here, I mean, I have adult children living in here trying to get applications. So it's just one of those things. And I think it's the same thing for Graham over there. You know, when you're thinking about nursing home, you're thinking about all of the usual suspects, you know, abuse, all of that, no care, no one's there, the food's horrible, you name it. And that's just not what assisted living and memory care is, whether you're at, you know, our level of what we're doing for luxurious wise, or you're a smaller personal care home. It's just not the same thing anymore. So I think a lot of people are getting caught by surprise when they go in and actually go through with a tour and they notice, oh my gosh, this is so much easier. And they don't have to pretend that everything's okay while they're by themselves at home. Your adult children come to visit you and like, oh my gosh, mom's, you know, hiding food in the dresser. It's just one of those things. So it just makes it a little bit easier for them as they're coming into tour. You're not getting shocked by, oh my God, this is a horrible hospital type environment. This is really home. This is a place where you can find new beginnings.
Can we talk about the economics of your industry, the economics, because
yeah, Roberto, one of the things I wanted to build upon was kind of what Anthony was going, which leads into the economics piece of it is, you know, we take our area, we take Manhattan, we take Southwest Connecticut, you know, a lot of people have hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity into their house, and reverse mortgages used to became very popular, that they could stay where they're at and try to get access to some of that equity. My mother was one of 10 kids and my grandfather was one of 14. And so when you looked at that population, you had, 40% of them that says, I built this house is paid for, I don't owe a dime, I'm dying in this house, okay? I don't care what happens. And it sometimes takes that child, that adult child, to show them an active adult retirement community, or to show them that they can come out and still live a life, and then show them the equity that they can take out of their home. And I think when you look at our region anyway, why there's not as much inventory is you have some people, and I know people think it's the interest rate being at 6 and 7%. You have some people that are just sitting there going, I have no other option that looks viable to me where I can get out of my house and access that money and that equity and downsizing. So we're seeing our own selves and we have probably 20% of our business in home care is in an assisted living, right? In assisted living, we want them to age in place, and we're augmenting the assisted living by providing home care services to them that are covered by Medicare. So the economics really drive this for us, Roberto, when we're looking at it. And it's, these rates seem very, very high, but the amount of equity that some seniors have built into their home is substantial. And we're trying to help assist them from a tax standpoint, of how to access that equity and really for them to enjoy their life.
What about the industry as a whole? The industry has got to be exploding in the sense that here, the numbers of people age 65 in 2022 was 58 million. By 2050, it's going to go up by 47%. So there's an industry that's going to expand. That's growing at 6.5% per year between 2023 and 2032. And I saw somewhere where the profit margin for the industry is 35%. So there's a lot of money in the industry running the entire spectrum from between all of you guys. You guys are literally running the spectrum of what you provide and at what different levels. What will happen? I mean, there's obviously a lot of space for competitors to come in. Like Russ, you seemingly are the only game in town in Fairfield County. Are you expecting competition to come?
Well, no, I mean, we're out there trying to buy up as much land as we possibly can. I mean, the economics for us at $1 million an acre, changes dramatically. And I think that's why you're seeing some of these secondary markets develop in New Jersey and in developing in Pennsylvania and possibly in Rhode Island, where you can go in and you have neighbors that don't say not in my backyard, or you have churches that say not in my backyard. Bring the seniors here. We would love to have them here. It is an economic multiplier for us because it's bringing in federal dollars into a local economy. But the price of land that we have right now, if you look around Fairfield County, it is so expensive. And then if you do want to develop it, you will have, everyone has 3 attorneys on speed dial. They'll have somebody that is, you talk about 830G, they'll be trying to block you from having that many people in a location. And with the price of land being what it is, you have to have certain in an economy in order to make it affordable for the value.
When you're buying land, and because the populace doesn't necessarily need to be it doesn't have to be so urban in the sense like they need to be convenient because they're not traveling that much, right?
No, they're traveling
further out.
Our active adults will travel and go on trips to Europe with their friends, their new friends. They'll have 4 or 5 of them. We were referring to the Golden Girls. I mean, they'll get together and their husbands, they're happy widows. So they'll go out and go on a trip and travel. They do not, from the people that I talk to, they do not want to be put out to pasture. They do not want to be in a farmland somewhere where there is nothing to do, that they have no restaurants nearby, they have no shows to go to, no activities. They want to be near areas so that their children can easily access them or pick them up when they're going grocery shopping or pick them up when they're going to the movie. They don't be so far out of town that is a burden on them to come and see them.
It's a real concern. It's as you say, not everybody is going to welcome a retirement home or a retirement community in their neighborhood. I'd like to hear what Graham's experience has been in Rhode Island doing this. Have you experienced the same kind of thing in Rhode Island?
Well, so when we started exploring building a care home in Rhode Island, the first thing we did was approach all the neighbors and get a sense of how they would feel about it. And the thing about the care home is, the concerns were, there's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be parking issues. Our residents don't really drive, and we end up with an immaculately cared for property, and they don't have giant parties either. So very quickly, everybody's sort of, concerns were assuaged. In fact, we had to go through the zoning process in order to get a permit to do what we wanted to do in this house, because it was 10 people living in one house. There's a special use permit that goes with that. When we ended up buying the property next door and applying for a 16-bed, all the people that opposed us originally came to the city planning hearing and said how great we were. They were supporters by the next round, and so they saw that it was a really good thing for their community. It created this residence that was beautiful, well maintained, quiet, great neighbors. We would bring people, we bring people in for sort of neighborly events. We have barbecues and stuff. They come over for 4th of July. I would have residents that instead of having Thanksgiving at their house, or the families having Thanksgiving at their house, they just came to our house because we did all the dishes, right? So, so we've had a really great experience with, creating these small care homes in neighborhoods. I understand it's tricky and it doesn't always go that way, but I think that, the experience that we've had has been really positive.
You had to sell the neighbors and you had to sell the town on a zoning change?
Correct, because they'd never heard of this before. There's some municipalities across the country, especially in the Southwest, where this is actually, you're able to do this by right, as long as you stay within a certain number of beds, like in, Phoenix or anywhere in California, you can do 8 or 10 beds, and you don't have to ask anybody's permission. You have to follow a few rules, do a few safety modifications, but nobody will ever know that you're there. Here on the East Coast, they don't have that built into the zoning regulations. They've never seen this model of care before. So it did take a little bit of education and, working with the city. Fortunately, they were very amenable, and they wanted to see these new options show up as a something they could provide seniors for their residents. Like we talk about the spectrum that exists out there. It can't just be one thing, and you want to have many options for seniors: home care, community residences and assisted living, all of that. You want to be able to provide that as much as possible, especially because of this silver tsunami we talk about coming along. There's going to be, we're 20 years out from the peak. There's 10,000 people turn 65 every day. So they deserve those options.
Roberto, I see the question in the chat. Where can I get information to provide housing for the elderly in Brooklyn? I think the question is generally for New Yorkers. Number one, most New Yorkers rent, so they don't have all that pile of equity that Russell was talking about earlier to tap into. The second thing is there's the perception is that if I'm in an apartment in a building, that I'm already in a community and I can walk everywhere, don't need a car. How is it different in New York? That's the question, Roberto. And
that's
what's
a really
the
good
answer?
It's a really good point. We have a lot of people who they're finished with their homes in other parts of the country. They move to New York to age because they feel it's easy to get a taxi. It's easy to get, especially if you're in a doorman building, or if you're in a building that has no stairs whatsoever. And even some doorman buildings still have some stairs and some obstacles to manage. But a lot of people come here in order to age, actually, in some ways. But they did just build a brand new building at 85th Street, actually 84th Street and Broadway. It's called the Apsley. It's this beautiful building, and it's something like $17,000 or $18,000 for a studio per month. And if you get a 2-bedroom, it's up to like in the 30s per month. It's this extraordinary facility. I mean, the fact is that I think with anything, Manhattan's expensive. New York is expensive. So, but I can't imagine it's much different from Palm Beach, to be honest.
Yep. And I mean, we do have a watermark in Brooklyn Heights as well, over in New York. So, I mean, we try to get into those markets. I mean, as far as us, when we're building anything, we build it to, you know, the location again. So we don't have a lot of those issues. West Palm Beach has been growing, you know, ever since it became West Palm Beach. And there's something new every year here, and you just kind of expect it. But to have options, I think someone mentioned this, to have options for seniors, as we have so many coming in, especially in Florida, who has the most coming in percentage wise, it's business as usual.
Where's the future of this going, Russ? I mean, you know, we got 5 more minutes to go. I'd like to hear about the future from all of you. What should I be doing to prepare for the future? And where are you changing your business model? If you can't build dense housing structures, how are you evolving your business in order to meet the need?
Look, you know, New Canaan, Fairfield County is no different than any other region in Florida. You know, some communities are going to open their arms and say, yes, we want to be supportive of it. Others are not. And so that it is no different. You know, I don't want to, you know, the users to think that, you know, one community is blocking, another community is accepting. Each community is different. I think Watermark certainly has found that when it's developed throughout the country. So it really, for me, and looking at this region or looking at a heavily density population in certain pockets of Florida, it really takes a partnership. It really takes a partnership with the town in terms of zoning. It takes a partnership with the community to say, this is where we would like senior housing to be, and this is where we're willing to support you in doing that. So you're always going to have, regardless of which, and I've practiced in, you know, 3 or 4 states, you're always going to have neighbors concerned. Is there an ambulance going to be driving by? What's the food delivery going to be? All of those things and concerns. It really takes a community approach to look at it and say, this is something.
Isn't the growth going to be home health aides and your ability to just organize the services? And it doesn't really always have to take place in the home. And I would imagine Anthony and Graham are both going to, like you, expand your services to where the people already are.
Well, the point that I was making before is there's already a shortage of nurses. So that one nurse can take care of 4 people, or that one nurse can take care of 1 person, right? So you're going to need economies of scale at some point in time. There's not enough nurses staff out there to allow everyone to be able to stay home and independent. So there is a cost threshold that's going to be met and it's going to be exceeded, where it's going to be more cost effective to be in a congregate setting than it is to remain isolated. And we've already shown, Graham's given great stories, you know, medication monitoring to medication compliance, to eating a balanced meal, to substance abuse, alcohol use goes way up when you're home isolated, you're controlling your bills. You know, there's a lot of reasons to be in a congregate supportive setting than to be home alone. So we'll continue to provide that, and we've seen a huge growth, but at some point in time, the manpower, the nurse power that it takes for that one-on-one care, there's just not enough caregivers to provide it.
And that also goes in line with that location. You talked about residences that are out in the countryside or whatever. You can't staff those. They won't drive out when they can get a job just down the street. Those are really hard to staff, and that becomes a huge issue when you're outside of town.
So most likely you'll build a second home and a third home, because that's the economies of scale. You're not going to be sending nurses out into the countryside.
I've seen it a million times. Someone buys, a piece of property out in the woods because it's so beautiful, and the whole time they're hiring, agency people and paying 3 times as much because no one will show up to work. So you want to stay where the staff is too. You have to keep that in mind.
All right, Anthony, what's the big prediction?
I couldn't agree more with everybody. I think the future in a personal sense, right? I think even though you look like you're 25, long-term care insurance is going to be a little too pricey than it would actually benefit you. So I think it's in research. I have members that come in or prospects that come in that are 50, and they're just honestly coming in here to understand what the model is. I think Watermark's done an amazing job of, perfecting the system over 35 years. And, David Barnes himself, who's our president and CEO, will say it's not really the system, it's how we apply it. To Graham's point as to where we're looking, what we're doing, we're nothing if we don't provide the services that, I've just kind of briefly explained here. But the future is due diligence. Long-term care insurance isn't what it used to be. At that point, you might as well just take half of what it is. I tried to do it at 28 years old, and it's a $1,500 monthly payment to cover 5 years if you ever need it. Doesn't make sense. Put half of that in a mutual fund and call it a day. The future is, at least in the next 20 years, it's just more growth. We're going to have more buildings. I'm building 3 more communities in Florida alone. So it's definitely going to be growing. We just got to do it in a way that makes sense, and it applies to our policies and what we envision as a company.
I love it. Anthony's crystal ball has everybody moving to West Palm Beach. and he's ready for them.
Sure.
And then when they move back to the Northeast, they come to Rhode Island.
Where there's seasons and apple picking. I know.
Right. And lobster.
And lobster.
There is no one solution, as I think we're all getting to. And each region is different. Yep. But in order to take, we know how much money we spend on the school system. Imagine that population of seniors now far exceed the number of kids that are in school. The economics and the dynamics of development and building and structure and infrastructure and support staff and all of that is going to change dramatically. And I think those investors, those developers that find a way to work through the passionate people that are saying not in my backyard or we don't need it, to looking at this silver tsunami that's hitting our area, that's really where the balance is going to be. And you have passionate people on both sides of the aisle.
Do you think that the nation is going to move toward the Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, California model of smaller homes in every neighborhood, or is it going to stick with
we're seeing it now? I mean, if you look at the population over the age of 65, Pennsylvania is probably in the top 3 now. Not because of the population, but people are finding more cost effective to live. We all have here friends whose parents moved into buy-in CCRC models in Pennsylvania just because the cost and the price of land and a dollar goes much further. That used to be true for Florida, right? It used to be true for Naples. It used to be true for West Palm Beach. But those costs, as you saw, are really coming in line in parity to what we're seeing in the Northeast.
All right. Well, thank you. I want to express my sincere gratitude to our fantastic guests and my co-host Roberto today.
Thank you guys so much. That was really great.
Thank you.
Really great.
If you love everything about real estate like we do, tell all your friends, spread the word, send a link. Russell by himself, if he just tells his friends, I'm sure our traffic will double here at Boroughs and Burbs. So Russell, spread the word.
So what is that, 20?
Yeah. Thank you for tuning in. I can't wait to have everybody back here next week for episode 141, where we talk about 3D printed homes. Maybe that's a solution for the elderly. I don't know. Tune in. Let's find
Be our
out.
next one.
See you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank
Cheers.
you all,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.